Now, as you guys already know, the Jacksonville Jaguars recently fired Urban Meyer after starting his NFL tenure with a 2-11 record. He got fired. They decided to part ways. A day after the story came out that Josh Lambo came and told the world that Urban Meyer reportedly kicked him and told him to make his effing kicks. So now the Jacksonville Jaguars are back in the market for another head coach, and there have been a lot of rumors that one of their top candidates is Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich. Now, Byron Leftwich has been the offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers since 2019. He's done a really good job. You look at what he's done with Tom Brady. You look at what he did with Jameis Winston. Even when Jameis Winston had his 30 interception season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense was still really good. He also was the quarterbacks coach for the Arizona Cardinals from 2017 to 2018. And I really think that this would be a really great hire for the Jaguars because Byron Leftwich used to play for the Jaguars back in the day. He got drafted in the first round, 7th overall in the 03 NFL draft coming out of Marshall. He played like 4 seasons for Jacksonville from 03 to 06. He threw for 2,532 pass yards, 58 touchdowns, 42 interceptions, completing 57.9% of his passes, and he had a 24-26 record during his time as a starting quarterback for Jacksonville. He also spent time with the Falcons, the Steelers, and the Buccaneers as a backup. So when you look at Byron Leftwich, I think he would be a perfect fit for Jacksonville because, one, he already knows the city, and on top of that, you look at Trevor Lawrence, you got to find somebody who can come in and save Trevor Lawrence. And I've always been telling people this, like, what determines how successful a quarterback is in the NFL when they're drafted in the first round is the coaching staff. There has never been a quarterback drafted in the first round that has been a bust when he was drafted by a team that had a good head coach. Now you look at Zach Wilson, you look at Trevor Lawrence, you look at Justin Fields, they've all struggled this year, their rookie seasons, because their coaching staffs or the coaches that they have coaching them up haven't really been great. Meanwhile, you look at Mac Jones, who ended up getting drafted by the Patriots 15th overall this past year's NFL draft. He's having the most success out of any of them because he's in the best situation with the best coaching staff. So it's really important that the Jaguars get this hire right. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been great. Not really all his fault. Urban Meyer don't really know what he was doing, wasn't really giving James Robinson the touches necessary. Like, there was just a lot of mismanagement. And when you look at Byron Leftwich, he has been in that situation where he knows what it's like being a first round pick, having the high expectations, and having that former quarterback background that's going to help him coach up Trevor Lawrence. And I really feel like if the Jaguars are going to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence, I really feel like they're probably going to want to bring in a offensive minded guy, and Byron Leftwich would be the perfect person for that. And the Jaguars are a really appealing job because you do have a lot of young talent on this roster. You have Laviska Shenault. You still are going to end up having Travis Etienne when he comes back from his injury if James Robinson ends up going elsewhere. The offensive line does need some rebuilding, but you do have some nice young pieces on offense, and defensively you do have some pretty good players also. You got Josh Allen, you got Miles Jack. Like, there are some really nice young players on this Jaguars team, and if they can get the right coach, I definitely feel like they can get things headed in the right direction. And Sean Khan is a really patient owner, and I think that Sean Khan is a really solid owner. I'm not saying he's the greatest owner, but I don't think he's a bad owner. Like, Sean Khan's one of those people, like, he hires you and he doesn't step on your shoes. He doesn't tell you what to do. He doesn't tell you who to draft. He doesn't tell you who to sign. He hires you and he allows you to do your job. And I think that's something that makes Jacksonville really appealing. The fact that, you know, Sean Khan doesn't always have his hand in the cookie jar, because there are a lot of instances where we see owners hire these coaches and they don't really allow the coaches to do their job. So you look at Sean Khan, whoever he hires, he's going to be extremely patient. So if he hires Byron Leftwich, he's going to give him at least 3-4 years to build this thing up and get this thing rolling. And with Byron Leftwich, I know he hasn't really had a lot of experience when it comes to coaching. He's only been a assistant coach in the NFL for like 5 years. But he has done a pretty good job, and Bruce Arians brought him to Tampa Bay, and he really likes him. And maybe Byron Leftwich may be the guy to replace Bruce Arians when Bruce Arians ends up stepping down. If he does end up stepping down, maybe he could be the next coach at Tampa Bay, or it could be Todd Bowles. But when you look at Byron Leftwich, he's been asked about the Jacksonville Jaguars job a lot over the last couple of days during press conferences. One press conference he didn't answer. I think another one I saw a report saying that he walked out. And then there was also another press conference when he addressed it. He said that he's only worried about trying to win the division and help this team win another Super Bowl. So it does look like Byron Leftwich is on the Jacksonville Jaguars radar. They also have interest in Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and a couple of other candidates out there. But I think that Byron Leftwich probably is their main target, according to a lot of insiders in the NFL world. Jay Glazer said that Byron Leftwich has a lot of push, or he's getting pushed heavily to owner Sean Khan and a lot of people inside of the Jaguars organization. I definitely feel like the city of Jacksonville would like to hire Byron Leftwich, when you already know the fact that he played for Jacksonville. So I don't think that any Jaguar fans should be upset. And he's been a pretty good play caller. Now, I don't really know how the play calling for Tampa Bay works per se, because when Tom Brady signed with the Buccaneers, he had like a little stipulation in his contract that he would have a little say in personnel decisions and also in the play calling. So I don't really know how the play calling is really going. I don't know if Tom Brady's just calling all the plays, or if Tom Brady calls the plays sometimes and Byron Leftwich is calling the plays. I don't really know, but Byron Leftwich, I really felt like he did a pretty nice job in 2019 when Jameis Winston was his starting quarterback. Felt like he did a pretty decent job trying to get the most out of Jameis Winston. Overall, didn't really work out, but he was still pretty effective, and the offense was really good. When you look at the Buccaneers, they've had some really good pass attacks, especially when it comes to their ability to throw the football downfield. A lot of big plays, a lot of splash plays, and that's something that Jacksonville hasn't really had a lot this year. They haven't really had those big plays down the field. A big reason for that is because they don't really have a lot of talent. The offensive line needs some fixing up. But if the Jaguars hire Byron Leftwich, I think that it would be an incredible hire. Definitely want to see who he would bring in for his staff, who's going to be his defensive coordinator, who's going to be his quarterback's coach and whatnot. But I definitely feel like having a former quarterback as your head coach, the groom Trevor Lawrence, would be a big benefit for Trevor Lawrence, especially when you look at the fact that they both were first-round picks. Even though Trevor Lawrence went first overall, Byron Leftwich went 7th overall coming out of Marshall. He still knows what it's like to be a first-round pick, having a high expectations, how to manage that. And I think that he could be a pretty good influence for Trevor Lawrence as he tries to find a way to resurrect his NFL career. And it's really important that the Jacksonville Jaguars nail this hire, because if they don't, then you pretty much wasted your first round pick. Because if Trevor Lawrence ends up getting another head coach who isn't all that great, then it's probably going to end up being, his career going in the dumpster. So this is a really big decision that the Jacksonville Jaguars must get right. I personally, if I was Sean Khan, I would bring in Byron Leftwich. I think he would be perfect to be the head coach in Jacksonville.